Hello guys, Mike's here through the phone here again.
Hey, how's it going?
Alright, today we're going to talk about the rest of the draft. We're going to talk about pretty much the whole draft as a whole. The first parter, we talked about the first round, and now we're just going to talk about the whole draft as a whole, because in all honesty, rounds 2 to 7, they're all... 2 and 3, you might see some big players, but after that, most of the time it's usually benchers or something.
It's usually just a guessing game after, the first couple rounds. You really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and kind of similar to last time when me and Mike picked 3 fave picks and 3 hated picks. We picked 3 favorite drafts and 3 least favorite draft classes of teams. And yeah, it was... As far as drafts, apparently the drafts had the record for most trades in the draft with 40 ever.
No, it's with the new CBA. It makes it easier, and the players are kind of cheaper, less guaranteed contracts.
Well, yeah,
and it makes it easier to make swaps and stuff like that. But let's talk about the teams that you really liked.
All right, teams I like. Well, some of these teams may sound familiar to favorite picks. One, I'm gonna start off with one. I love Washington's draft. I think they did an excellent job of prepping for the future in terms of because not only did they get Hopkins from Ohio State, they also picked Haskins from Ohio State. Sorry, I can't pronounce his name right because he's from Ohio State. I liked a lot of the weapons they picked. They picked a lot of good wide receiver picks, and they filled out quite a few needs for them. And I feel like they're going to be better a lot with this draft. And another team's Baltimore. I loved Baltimore's draft. They got the weapons. They got all the pieces they need really to fill in the gaps, because they were very close and they hit the nail on the coffin on that one. And the third team's Miami. When we first did round 1, I didn't really have... Washington and Baltimore, I talked a bit about their first round picks, but Miami, I didn't really... Miami had a decent... A lot of teams had good drafts this year. There wasn't really a lot of teams I thought were terrible drafts, but there's a few that we'll get to in a minute. But Miami, that trade for Rosen, I thought was very smart by them, and shame on Arizona for treating him like they did, in all honesty, after 1 year. 1 year. You only get 1 year now. No pressure.
Yeah, you get one season, you're a rookie, You're playing for, the worst team, and we expect you to win at least 8 games, or we're going to trade you. That's how we do it.
Yeah. Did they switch coaches? Did they have a new coach now, or is it the same coach as who picked Rosen?
I don't know.
Because if it's a different coach, then it's much more understandable. If it's the same guy, it's like, dude, what the hell? You just ditch him for Kyler Murray?
Well, there's also a general manager and an owner could be changed, not just a coach.
True, but
usually when they do those, they switch the coach too.
Yeah, but I hate it when people this player's going to be a once-in-a-generation player, but there's always a player like a Kyler Murray who comes up in a draft. There's always a Cam Newton, a Kyler Murray, a frickin' Colin Kaepernick, Andrew Luck. They come every so often, and in all honesty, they could have given Rosen another year or 2 before they decide to cut him loose.
Yeah, they felt like, I can kind of see it just for the picks. I'm looking at the Bleacher Report. They said Arizona Cardinals had a really good draft. So that's what they're saying.
Yeah, that's why they're not...
It's all predicated on the quarterback, so I don't exactly agree with picking a quarterback number 1 overall.
Not in this draft, no. Because there's not really...
There's a lot of good players on defense, too, and a lot of other stuff.
I feel like the NFL has spent so many years, offense, that the defense is going to catch up now. Now I feel like we're going to see a lot more defensive dominant teams in the NFL. And
who else had a really good team draft class?
Those are my 3. I picked 3. Those 3.
So that was Washington and which other ones did you say?
Washington, Baltimore, Miami. Miami did the trade, which I thought was excellent, and they also picked up a lot of good players too to help fill in the gaps because really because quarterback has been a struggle for Miami for a long time, and I think that was a great job of picking a guy who's been in the NFL for a year. He has the ropes down. He's young. He's still athletic, and there was nobody in the draft to pick really. So I thought that was an excellent. I think that trade really kind of propelled them to one of my favorites. A lot of the other teams did all right. Lions had a good draft, but they picked a lot of players that left me scratching my head. That's why they're not one of my faves. But they didn't pick bad players, just players I was like, really them? but yeah, who'd you like?
Well, there's 32 teams, and I could say a lot of them I like or don't like.
Yeah.
I want to try and talk about some teams that you didn't say. I want to.
Yeah.
Really like the Patriots.
Yeah, they did good.
Patriots, they got N'Keal Harry at the end of the first round, who's a pretty good player. And they got a couple second and third round picks. They got a cornerback. They got Chase Winovich from Michigan. I don't even know who that is.
Oh, you don't know Chase Winovich? Oh my God, he was like the start.
Everyone's telling me that's something I need to look at.
Yeah,
and they got a running back. They got a tackle. They got an A+ grade. I think it's pretty decent.
Yeah, Chase Winovich was like, in my opinion, their best defender, at least on the front seven in their team. I mean, I didn't know he was going to the draft this year, but yeah, he's like super good. He's like Clay Matthews style defender in terms of like his style and how he plays and everything. And plus he has long hair too. It's kind, but yeah, England had a pretty good draft. They always have good drafts. The thing with New England though is the fact that a lot of their picks are kind of like, I mean I love the Chase Winovich pick, but but New England, I don't know. I kind of feel like that they didn't really they do what they do kind of thing. My favorite drafts are usually teams that kind of surprised me a little bit, impressed me. New England just kind of like
they did what they usually do. It wasn't surprising.
Yeah, it's like that star student who gets an A. It's like you got an A, but you always get an A. So why should I give a shit? You know.
I mean, that's why people overlook them sometimes. I think.
Yeah.
This was a solid class, and they got a couple different positions. They didn't really stretch for any players. I think it was good.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on to the next team, though.
Yeah.
Another team that you didn't mention that I really liked was the Oakland Raiders.
Oh, yeah.
Will be Los Angeles Raiders. They got Josh Jacobs from Alabama at 24. I think that was probably one of the underrated running back picks. Alabama running backs usually have a good track record, and
yeah.
They got Cleveland Farrell, number 4. No one even at the draft knew who that was until they said, "Oh, you went to Clemson," and then everyone just burst out.
Yeah.
They got Jonathan Abram, was pretty solid. They had to get a third first round pick to do it, but
yeah, but they got quite a few picks from Chicago for Khalil Mack. So
yeah, they got a tight end, they got a receiver, they got a cornerback. So I think that was a pretty decent one. I can't say for sure. No one really can, but overall it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And they got some decent names. There's another team that I really liked, and this is by number 1 most underrated draft class. Not even the best in terms of players, but underrated. It's the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, really?
At the beginning, this is what I'm reading. They had 4 draft picks before they started making trades, and now they finished with 11 picks.
Oh, yeah. That's
a lot. Even if half of those players don't pan out. They got DK Metcalf from Mississippi. Great freak talent people are talking about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They got some defensive players. They got a safety. They got an edge rusher.
I think one team had the most draft picks ever in a draft history. There was a lot of movements in this draft. It was kind of impressive to see all the changes and stuff.
Yeah, and they were definitely a prime example of benefiting from trades because they got so many picks for it. And even if, like I said, I don't know all their players, but if half of them don't work out, they're still pretty good.
Well,
I got to give them a pretty good A on that one.
Yeah, and they needed those too because they're losing a ton of players. I mean, they got depleted hardcore. I mean, all they have, because even Doug Baldwin might retire because of injuries he sustained. So they all they have is Russell Wilson. I think they still have Earl Thomas, but he's been talking about leaving for a while. So they need some replenishing. But yeah. Now, teams I hated in this draft. Well, the first one is no shocker, the New York Giants. I mean, come
on, give us some detail.
All right, so it's the big thing is like the 6th rounder was a head scratcher, and I already talked enough about that one, even though we could talk more about it. But for
Daniel Jones, 6th overall?
Yeah, Daniel Jones.
Sixth rounder. Just a 6th rounder.
He's a 6th rounder drafted in the 1st round. He's like the reverse Tom Brady.
He's drafted 6th overall, too. I mean...
Yeah. But from when I saw the draft, them drafting, and what I've read about other analysts and my own thoughts based on what I read, it seems like they kept making... Even when I watched the draft through my phone, they kept making the same Daniel Jones picks over and over again. And to me, it felt like they weren't picking the right players, really, players.
I'm looking at this, they got, seemingly all defense, even though their offense is not that great.
Yeah, that's the thing. They
got cornerback and linebacker, I think. It looks like they mostly focused on defense, and their offense isn't necessarily a great one. So
yeah, they got rid of.
That's probably not the best move. They got a guard in the 7th round, but whatever.
Yeah, they traded Odell Beckham Jr., so they don't have any offensive help there. So it's not like they can make.
But you gotta focus on the players, not just the team need.
Yeah.
So I have to say it's still a reach for Jones, though. It doesn't seem like, as far as I know, that they should have picked him 6th overall. Maybe trade and pick him later or something.
Well, that's the thing. If you're going to go all defense...
Wouldn't they have been better off with Haskins than Jones? Just an opinion?
Oh, hell yeah. Are you kidding me? I mean, Haskins is much more established than Jones. In fact, from what I've read or saw somewhere, that apparently they picked him because he reminded them of Eli Manning. He even
doesn't even make sense to me.
Yeah, and he kind of eerily. And I saw a picture. I'm like, oh my god, he eerily looks like Eli. This is tempting fate here. Are they sure they want another Eli? I mean, I love Eli. He is clutch, but I mean, good lord, he is not the most.
Statue quarterback again. They could have got a runner.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you're gonna go defense, why not pick a it was a quarterback weak draft. Why not pick a good, solid defensive lineman in the 1st round with that 6th pick and pick the quarterback later?
They could have got Josh Allen at number 6 just before the Jaguars got him at 7, and he's a pretty good player.
Yeah, and they could have picked...
Not the quarterback, the lineman.
Yeah, then they could have... All right, now the Giants. The next two, I took a little digging. It was hard for me to find teams that really stuck out to me in terms of real shitty drafting. But one is Chicago, and a lot of it with Chicago is that... Because they traded a lot of their picks for Khalil Mack, so they didn't draft till the 3rd round, which I thought was... And they didn't even try drafting up. You see, I could live with drafting 1st and the 2nd round, but 3rd round, that's weak. And here's the thing, that they didn't draft any players they needed until the 6th round. And to me that's I thought that was weak because you're already behind a draft already. So once you get picking, you gotta pick players you know you're gonna need. And they didn't do that. So they kind of... I read somewhere that apparently Chicago thought that, or analysts thought that they didn't need, really that much. But in my opinion, unless you're a Super Bowl winner, you need something for next year, without a
Yeah.
doubt. And Chicago probably needed stuff, and they didn't really. I did feel like they didn't tried hard enough. I think their attitude was, well, we got Khalil Mack, so we won, and it's just like, no.
Yeah, there were other notable teams that made some trades. Is that all your teams?
I got one more.
Others that stick out?
One more team I didn't like was Green Bay's, mainly because I felt like when I looked at the draft and who they picked, I felt like they didn't really pick enough people to help Aaron Rodgers out, to give him a break. Like, I think they drafted quite a few defenders, but it didn't felt like they were getting like their first pick was that Michigan defensive lineman. And he was all right in Michigan, but apparently there was a lot of speculation on whether he could adapt to the NFL. And in my opinion, if you have Aaron frickin' Rodgers, when you're drafting players, you gotta get players that can help him, not just on offense, on defense. Because offense, he can make anyone work with Aaron Rodgers. He can make anyone a star. But defense is what they needed. And even though they did draft some defenders, I felt like they didn't. It felt like they weren't really like, yeah, here's some defenders and whatever. I felt like they weren't drafting for starting players based on what I saw and what I read. And that's kind of another week one there for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it really just is. It is what it is. They're taking a gamble on talents and not looking at their team as much. They're looking at the players.
Yeah.
Even if they are kind of sketchy, it might work out, but who knows?
Yeah, like I said, it was I found it a little tricky to find teams' drafts that I really, really hated, because when I looked at grades and what analysts thought, there wasn't a ton of teams where I was like, yeah, this team did a shitty draft. I mean, Chicago and Green Bay, I didn't agree with, but the level of hate for them isn't near, like, the hate of New York Giants.
Okay, I feel you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a few teams I didn't like.
Yeah.
Alright, so I did not like the 49ers, okay?
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion, obviously you get Nick Bosa, but that's like it. Like, they got a punter, I think.
In the 4th round? Oh, yeah, that was weird.
Who else did they even get? It's like, they got Deebo Samuel.
They got
South Carolina receiver. And
yeah.
It's like, I've seen him play. He's not the biggest player. He's a big receiver.
Yeah.
Is he really the all-around player at the NFL level? I'm not sure. Nick Bosa could be, but it could just be one of those picks where they get him for 4 years and then he leaves because,
Oh, the Michael Crabtree?
The
Michael Crabtree move?
It's a little different, but yeah, you get the point. Like, I think Nick Bosa was obviously their best pick, and the rest of it kind of is a fall off.
Yeah, I felt like I thought about picking them for hate, but then I saw the other teams and I thought, I don't like San Fran's, but I kind of like I don't like the other three. Yeah, but yeah, because at least San Fran did get the Bosa. The other teams, I don't think even got a Bosa really, but yeah.
Alright, I'll tell you, I mean, it wasn't the worst. If you get a player that you're 99% is a sure thing, like Nick Bosa is, that's good, but if you have as many picks as they did, which they had a couple, I think they had, like, I don't know, they had at least, like, 6 or 7 for sure, because they drafted in a couple different rounds. You should get at least 2 or 3 good players, and I don't know who those good players are going to be. They might have got them, but who knows? Yeah,
it's hard with San Fran. They're starting with so little right now. They kind of clean house and starting fresh with Garoppolo, but they haven't really been successful in getting the ball rolling.
Yeah. So I mean, who knows? It could work out, but personally, I don't think that's as good as I'd say. I mean. Let's think about this. There's other teams I could mention. I would have mentioned mention the Green Bay Packers if you hadn't mentioned them, because I didn't like their class. It was kind of predicated on only a couple players.
Yeah.
I'll be a spoiler. I did not like the Lions picks.
I don't blame you.
I just don't like that they picked the tight end at 8. Now, he could be the best tight end in the world, but they're still going to have lots of problems with their offensive line. And I don't even think they drafted a lineman at all. They drafted all defense again.
Yeah.
Except for tight end at number 8, which is arguably a very questionable move.
They picked another tight end in like round 6 or something, but yeah. And I thought about putting them in hated too, but then I looked at their roster and I realized they actually have a lot more well-rounded established players than I thought they did on the defensive line. Offensive line, they still have a lot of young players that are trying to develop now. And in all honesty, if they're going to get more offensive linemen, I'd rather them be veterans, not rookies. They got plenty of them. So I understand, but the thing is that even though they do have quite a few like good defensive linemen, I don't know why they wouldn't have tried picking a linebacker, because they could have had a linebacker. I mean, they have good linebackers, but they could have got.
They got a linebacker, Jelani Tavai, number 43.
Oh yeah, from Hawaii. Yeah, he looks.
I didn't even know who that is.
Yeah, I didn't either. They also picked up a Clemson linebacker in the undrafted free agency.
Oh, they did? Yeah. Clemson's pretty good. They got Austin Bryant, number 117 from Clemson.
Yeah, they got that. So
they got a few good players, but I feel like they did focus on position rather than best player available, and that might hurt them a little bit. That's just my opinion. Yeah,
and in all honesty, like I said in the first part, I understand the pick for a tight end because they had no one at tight end last year. Even now, even though they picked up a couple guys, they're not going to be game changers by any means. So I understand picking him up, especially when you have Jones and Galladay, and Jones was hurt last year. When you only have Galladay, it really hurts Stafford. So I understand picking up a good tight end, but I don't know. I mean, he was compared to Gronkowski. He's been said to be a great, well-rounded tight end, but I just don't want to get another Eric Ebron.
Yeah, no Lions fan wants that. I'll tell you my last team, okay? My last team that I really didn't like was the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, they got their best, and it says here, most notable pick, Jonah Williams from Alabama, the tackle.
Yeah.
That's obviously a good, safe-looking choice. It may or may not work out, but it looks pretty good. The rest of it, it's like they got a run-blocking tight end, Drew Sample, number 52.
Yeah.
They got a quarterback.
Yeah.
In the 4th round, Ryan Finley. I don't even know who that is. And to be honest, they probably should have picked up a different quarterback if they really wanted one.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe if they really wanted to get a quarterback, they probably should have traded up for, like, Will Grier, who was, like, 4 picks ahead or something.
Yeah.
It's not like the Carolina Panthers desperately needed a quarterback either. They probably could have made a deal or something.
Yeah. I thought about putting him as my most hated. I thought about it, but then I saw Chicago and Green Bay. I'm like, I kind of hate them even more because Cincinnati did make a safe pick. Chicago and Green Bay really didn't. So,
I mean, no pick is really 100% safe.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The experience and the position and the archetype and just having a lot of experienced players come from, like, Alabama at that position.
Yeah.
It just seems like their first-round pick was really the one, and then they really kind of fell off.
Yeah, I felt like with this draft, there was a lot of teams that were trying to stretch for, like, the big offensive playmaker, where obviously it was a draft of defensive players and offensive linemen, and yeah, I felt like a lot of teams like New York and Arizona were like trying to draft like it was 2011 when it's 2019, you know?
Yeah. The one thing I want to say, I know I already mentioned my teams. I did not like obviously the quarterback teams. Okay, I didn't like Arizona Cardinals quarterback pick. I didn't like the Washington Redskins quarterback pick so much. It was okay, but I don't know about first round for a quarterback for a team that's like average.
Yeah, I did like Denver.
Didn't like the New York Giants either. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I did like that the Broncos picked up Drew Lock though. He wasn't a first rounder, but they did pick him up, and I thought that was a good choice.
Yeah, that was the one I did kind of like because it wasn't a first round. They knew that they could get another player first round and then get a quarterback that's decent after. And
yeah, and he could.
They're also in a better position with an experienced quarterback, Joe Flacco. But,
oh yeah, Joe Flacco.
It's like you still shouldn't reach for a quarterback even if you need one.
Yeah.
That's all. I felt that the pick was pretty decent, but yeah, those were my teams. I really didn't like the Bengals or a couple of those teams that I just mentioned. I forgot them already.
Yeah,
because I'm still looking at other picks and stuff.
Yeah.
The Green Bay Packers I didn't like so much either, but I didn't want to mention that. I didn't like the Lions a whole lot, but this is all speculation.
Yeah, we never know. I mean, I will, since the Lions are using a lot of New England general manager scouting style and all that, I am interested in seeing how those picks will end up, but it's hard to say because, it's Lions, so.
I mean, I'm more curious with, the better teams, to be honest. Like, the top teams, I feel like, for some reason, they're just going to have players come in earlier,
Yeah, well, yeah.
Rookies that are going to come in earlier. The better teams draft better players for some reason. Yeah. I don't know why.
I think because they know their identity. They know who they are, so they know what to look for. The teams that are struggling don't have an identity, so they're just kind of grasping at straws.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I feel like the team that really did that, the Seahawks, the Patriots, like I said, the Raiders was pretty good.
Yeah.
There's a few teams that had some good players, but this is all speculation. Who really knows, right?
Yeah.
The math tells me don't draft that first-round quarterback unless you're really, really sure. And
yeah.
I don't think Daniel Jones isn't really sure. I don't think Haskins isn't really sure. I don't think Kyler Murray's are really sure. I think they're all kind of maybe.
Yeah, Daniel Jones, a.k.a. Family Dollar Eli Manning, and Eli Manning's like Family Dollar Peyton Manning.
Watch, he becomes like the best player in the league, and then you're really sad. And I put that as my ringtone.
Oh no, the best player is gonna be the Steelers pick at linebacker, Bush, with our luck. Oh man. Yeah, I thought about putting Pittsburgh as non-hated, but I didn't mind that they picked him because I knew they were trying to get back to their linebacker strengths, but yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. And
hey, let's talk about some other sports for a second. We talked about the NFL draft for this long, okay?
Yeah, we're going to quickly go over the other sports. First off, baseball is still infancy. There hasn't been a lot of big games. Tigers have been up and down, kind of.
The team that really has surprised me in MLB is the Tampa Bay Rays. They've been pretty damn solid.
Yeah, Seattle too. I'm surprised the Mariners have been so good.
Yeah, true. I mean, obviously, people from those areas would know more about those teams. Yeah. I don't know much about Tampa Bay or Seattle's players, lineups, but from what I can tell, they have a decent defense, and it seems like they can compete with the best of teams, and they play in divisions that have good teams, like the AL West and the AL East have good teams to compete with.
Yeah, definitely. And
it seems like the Tigers are really struggling, even against some more scrubby teams in the Central.
Well, they're really trying to they're using a lot of young players and trying to build them up. They're not relying on a lot of veterans, so it's going to be rough for a bit. But they got a great manager, though, so hopefully they can build stuff up. Yeah. Oh, Red Wings. I don't know if you knew this. Red Wings picked up. I forgot his name as the general manager. Um. Uh. I forgot his name. He was a legendary Red Wing player. I think his jersey number was 19. And he GM'd Tampa Bay to success, and now he's going to the Red Wings, and everyone's pretty excited about that because Red Wings have a lot of young players that just haven't quite hit their stride yet. But yeah, the NHL playoffs are still they're still going. I haven't heard much else besides the.
Oh, dude, I made some awful picks. I picked the Lightning. They got swept.
Yeah.
Let's think. Columbus is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
The only team that I really know much about is Boston, and Boston is usually one of those consistent teams, so you could look for them.
Oh, yeah.
The West is kind of wild. No one really knows what's going to happen, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
The Avalanche are pretty decent. I don't know. Yeah. I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you much about what I think. If I had to predict Stanley Cup or something like that, it'd be one of those contending... maybe the Knights or the Bruins or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not being able to predict that until it gets closer to the playoff, get closer to the Stanley Cup, really.
The NBA, though.
Oh, yeah.
NBA, I'm still thinking about the Rockets and the Warriors, but I think the Warriors got a slight edge still from experience.
Yeah. Are they both in the same conference, though?
Yeah, they're both Western Conference.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
the Warriors are just in a league of their own sometimes, and then sometimes they just shoot themselves in the foot. That's all.
Yeah, I think the NBA is still in that period where it's easy for a team to be a dynasty and dominate. Because I looked at the NBA, the teams that qualified for the NBA playoffs, and there was a lot of teams I was like, really, they're in the playoffs? Because I don't hear about those teams at all in like ESPN or any other sports news. So it just feels like the NBA's kind of favoritizes a few teams, and all the other teams can just suck it. So I kind of well, it's because in the NFL it's so well balanced. Any team can win the Super Bowl any year at any time. And
that's true. The NBA is kind of. You stay at the top for 10 years and then you finally get bored.
Well, yeah, and the sad part is I don't mind that if the teams but the way the teams play now is the part that really grinds my gears because
they don't play defense that much.
Yeah, and they should because basketball defense can be pretty hardcore. I mean, look at any game before 2010. But yeah, I think the Warriors could do it. I don't know which team in the East are very dominant. I think I know Pistons qualify for the playoffs for sure, but I don't remember who won the division. It definitely wasn't Cleveland. It could have been Indiana. I think Indiana did. But don't take my word for it. But I saw Brooklyn was in. And yeah, I'm just not as familiar. The West is kind of the teams with more of the highlights in the East. All the big players left the East for the West.
Yeah, dude. Hey, I gotta go. All right, I know it's rude to the audience and whatever.
That's okay. We talked about everything that was out there.
Yeah, we'll cover some more sports maybe in the next round of NBA or NHL playoffs. But
yeah, we'll do
that. To you guys later.
Okay. All right. See ya. Bye. And that's it for me too. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the videos, and have a good day.